what was the end goal here? The beginning goal was, what does it even mean? What's the end? What are we ending on? Was it, remember how we were doing like the first step, last step, and then put all the things in the middle? I don't see a clear end. So, because we got to know how to get to the, you know.
Correct.
What is it?
I don't know.
Start strong, finish strong.
Yeah, you got to have a clear.
So the end, when I was talking to Casey, something along the lines of, it's the baby steps, something that people could leave with, like practical stuff that it's kind of like a wrap up.
Okay, but what is that? Like, respect. Like, what is the end? Like, what are we? Like, what is the goal of the whole episode? What is our thesis that we're telling them? Because my thought was just the whole trade off and like talking about how like if you don't have one, you gotta use the other. If you don't have the other, you gotta use that. But what's the end? Like, what are we making them leave with? Just so I know, like, for the wrap up, how to add value to make sure to close it out. Because we're not. I don't know why this is here. There's no name at the end.
Call to action, and we'll see you next time. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's why I want to know what the end goal is. We were like working on two separate things yesterday.
Okay.
And so when they did this, I wasn't like. So I just wanted to. I'm trying to get an understanding of the end so that I don't. So we get. So I know what direction we're aiming it toward this entire time.
Well, worst case scenario, later today or tonight, you can just do a 1 minute ending, and we can plug that back in. But we gotta start rolling, guys. We're gonna run out of time. Okay, ready? Here we go. Okay, stand by.
I'm really all right.
Just open, and then the conversation will just flow from there. Whatever. Yeah. Trust me. Yeah. Just don't overthink it, and remember, also take a deep breath. Remember, this is episode 4 or 5 down the road, so this is not your first out of the gate episode. That'll be later today or tomorrow, whatever. Yeah. So I mean, worst case scenario, we can redo this episode, Thursday morning if you want to do it all over again. Good enough. Hello. Okay. Just relax, Andrew. Take a deep breath. Here we go. Audio check for Spreaker.
So just jump into it and say, like, what we're talking about today. Do I say like, what's up, Ivan? Blah blah. Like,
you can do, because what we have to do.
You think you're
show intro? Let's get scrappy. Nah, just go straight. All right. Like, all right, let's get into go there.
So do you know what you're saying?
No, because I didn't do this.
Okay.
So like I have to follow your lead because I wasn't with this. The other ones I will be able to because I didn't, but I have to.
Okay, guys. Here we go. I'm just going to start. Right. We'll just start the recording, and if we need on this one, if we need to hit the reset 2 minutes into it, we can do it. But okay, here we go. Go.
All right, so today we are going to talk about how everybody talks about time is money, and they complain and they talk about how they don't like wasting time. They want to earn their worth, and they're not sure exactly how to go about different situations when I guess they're trying to grow or build their business. And trying to navigate relationships, meetings with people, talking with people, and trying to navigate how to even raise their prices as they go about growing their business.
For sure, I think this is a conversation we have a lot within the entrepreneurial space, right? So there's this idiom or this mantra of the fact that time equals money or time is money, and usually people are using that as a way to say why they are not able to spend time with someone because that time is valuable and that time can be used for something else, like for money. And so, yeah, I'm excited to chat about it and figure out if we can get to a common ground to help people to understand like what our thoughts are on time and money and how they relate to one another.
So how do you feel about that when somebody complains? One of the biggest things I hear a lot of our generation complain about is people want to do coffee dates, or people want to quote unquote pick your brain. But of course, on the back end, they're very nervous, or they don't like that fact because they feel like their time isn't worth it or is being taken advantage of. What are your overall thoughts when you initially hear somebody say time is money?
I think we need to cut because we can't interview each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just keep rolling so we can.
Yeah, just go ahead. So say something. We can't do that because we'll be stuck doing that. I hate those podcasts.
Really?
I hate them.
Got it. So I follow up on.
You just have to keep. It's all your thoughts.
Oh man.
And we go back and forth. It's literally conversation.
This is so weird.
And also, you didn't introduce yourselves at the beginning.
I think we said we were gonna do that at another time.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're still trying to make that.
Here, we'll just keep talking. Okay, we're still rolling here, yeah.
I got it.
Something about time and money.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we just gotta get into the conversation. We're not even there.
Do you want to restart from the top here?
Probably.
Just delete this one here.
Yeah, probably.
I'm trying to figure out how do we have a conversation if I don't ask
I'm
questions.
gonna go ahead and stop and
If
delete
what?
this recording.
If I don't ask questions.
Because most of our conversations are saying what we think and bouncing and piggybacking off of one another. The only time we ask questions of one another is when we literally don't have a thought ourselves.
I think you guys were flowing great there, especially the opening. Yeah.
So you want to...
Would it be helpful to have, some people like to have just bullet points up on the board?
That's what we have here.
Okay. Yeah, I would just go with the bullet points and then, and the point about asking questions, if it happens, we can cut that out. It's always easier to cut stuff out.
You know what'll help me? The fact that I think the issue is I did these notes with Casey, and it's just weird because it would have been better if we did it together so that we naturally had a flow and it could flow. Because I really
I can go with you. That's what I was just saying. Based on what your conversation was and where you wanted to take it, that's what I wanted to know at the beginning and the end. I can hop in.
Well, then you would have to lead it because
But I can't because I didn't do. You know what I mean? But I can hop in wherever you take it. Because remember, this is the whole Gary Vee thing. This is the whole you can't get into the whole pick your brain and all that type of stuff. You go into too many things too early. We have to start out whatever the whole mantra about time equals money, what people say about it and what that means and all that stuff, and then we can get into the rest of that stuff. Once we get in about 5-10 minutes, it's free game. and then we can both like say stuff and go places. But I don't know how to frame it because it's not my. I don't know how to.
I don't know how to frame it either.
Well,
I just dropped some notes here. But
what about this option here? So this is like, is this episode 4 or 6?
I think it's
I don't know.
4.
Okay, well, regardless.
4.
So what about what if you just pivot to 6? Because you guys you sat down and mapped out a whole another. You have 10 of these, so you have another one you mapped out already between the two of you. Why don't we do that one, and you guys can talk this afternoon about this episode and get together on the page about that.
Can we do that? Or no?
If you switch to one that you guys already had a whole conversation about, one-on-one between the two of you, then just, because again, these are not going in order, right? So, so just, if the one that y'all sat down and talked all through, pull that one up and just roll with that one, then you can, after this show, take a break and reconvene on this topic. That's just a thought, or we can just go with the one you have here loaded. But thoughts?
I think this one is good. I just think
Okay.
we need to. We gotta get into it.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. Let's restart. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start 3, 2, 1 here. Stand by. Ready? Okay. Here we go. I'm going to point to you, Andrew, so maybe make quick eye contact so I can kind of give you that's when you're going to go live or start recording. Ready? Here we go. Stand by. I'm going to drop my microphone so there's no audio over here.
I still don't know how to go about this without asking questions.
I think in a normal conversation, people do ask inquisitive.
Yeah, but we don't do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
We don't do that. That's the only reason we're doing a podcast because it's not. You know what I mean? Like he would ask a question, but he would say, "Well, oh, that's interesting. What's your thought on that?" It would be more like a thesis thing, not like a regular thing. Like that's not. Those are the podcasts that are, because it feels like I'm being interviewed, like I'm a guest and not the co-host.
Well, can't he just ask your opinion of it?
He can if it's like a thing that he would be. You know what I mean? That's more like divergent from my experience versus his, or whether or not he wants to see what I think about it versus what he does because we're opposite, or what I think about it versus what he does because we have different types of businesses, or but not like asking that. You know what I mean? Like the basic question of like, so what are your thoughts on? Because it's kind of like a back end. And so my thought is that yes, that will happen because we wind up doing that. But the fact your voice didn't even go high, you don't ask questions like that. You see what I'm saying? Like it's always an inquisitive. It's always a thesis thing. It's always a divergent question, not something that's.
So you know what I need? I need the conversation to start flowing.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to get this conversation flowing, because like we're just jumping into it.
You just gotta go. Give your thesis on it. Just start it out. You gotta do the blah blah blah. Time is money. Blah blah blah. People always say da 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 whatever. Because you just have to get into it. Then once it starts flowing. Because obviously I don't mind coming in to back you up, but then I'm going to throw it right back to you as soon as we're done, then you go somewhere else, and then the conversation's there. And then we can go back and forth wherever. But you gotta figure out what the points are. I really wish these were more like, yeah, we gotta get into it. Because to be fair, this isn't even what my thought was. My thought was that.
Well, I think we switched to the other episode then, because it doesn't seem like y'all.
Yeah, we probably just need to. I'm ready. Just.
Okay.
We gotta get at least 40 minutes of audio in.
Okay. Ready? Let's just start recording, and again, like I said, just make it conversational. I think it sounded great. And if there is like that disrupt there, just kind of reset and keep. We can cut that segment out, but then just continue with the conversation. Okay, here we go. Stand by. Okay, Andrew, I'm going to just take a deep breath and, yeah, here we go. Andrew, I'm going to drop the mic here.
All right, so is time really money? It's a common saying that a lot of people, especially in our generation, talk about all the time when they talk about having coffee dates, meetup dates, picking your brain, quote unquote. We all hear it, we all talk about it, especially for new coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs that try to start their journey. And they talk a lot about, time is money. But is that a valid statement? Is that something that we have earned the right to say as new, new entrepreneurs, specialists, consultants just jumping into the industry and trying to value our time synonymous to those who have been doing it for 5 or 10 or plus years and who charge $100, $150 an hour. So that's always been something that's really, really funny to me. I wanted to just break it down a little bit and talk about it. What do you think, Ivan? What are some of your initial thoughts when you hear this?
Yeah, immediately what I think about with time is money is the fact that they're different, and the fact that they're both a resource, and in different seasons you have one more than you have the other, and so we're talking a lot about like this. We consider ourselves to be miniature Gary V's, and Gary V is really big on this whole time and money thing, right? So he's always talking about if you don't have one, you got to use the other, and when you don't have one, the not using the other one is almost blasphemous. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Like, if you don't have time and you're busy, and I'll just give an example of what he usually means when somebody doesn't have time. So a person that doesn't have time is a person who's maybe an analyst. You know what I mean? Who's working 8 to 7, or doing a lot, having a lot to do in their 9 to 5 job. You get home, or even a mom or a dad, or someone that doesn't necessarily have time. You gotta have the money to be able to outsource those things to get that stuff done. But more often, what we usually see is the person that doesn't have the money, right? Usually, we're looking at somebody
Right.
who does not have the money, and the thought process there is, if you don't have the money, somewhere you gotta find the time, because you gotta put in the work. You gotta hustle to get to the point that you could get by way of leveraging that money. So that's kind of my thought on the time and equals money thing. That's why I'm not necessarily one who would. I'm not necessarily one who would venture to agree with that statement fully, but I think we'll get into a little bit of that a little bit later here.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think at the end of the day, especially for quote unquote, broke college students or broke millennials, we always we say that we don't have money, but definitely everybody has time.
You always got time. You always got time.
I hear this really, really dope quote. Money isn't the only form of currency, right?
Nope.
Time is a form of currency. I remember when I first started my business, or when I was, or I couldn't afford people, I would give them my time in other aspects or outside of business.
Yeah.
And that was a way that we bartered.
Yeah, that's a really good actually concept right there, man, because what you're saying is not only that time equals money and that the time can be transferred out for your own self. Because usually what that statement is meaning, or what people think when they say that, is the money that I don't have, I then just have to put in time to get to the point that I was going to be, time on a thing. So instead of paying money to just have somebody give me a list of all the manufacturers for this thing, I got to go research this stuff. That's usually what they're meaning. But you're kind of flipping it on its head there and kind of bringing a different perspective by way of that, because you're also saying that because it's currency, I can pay it anywhere. I don't have to just pay it to myself. I can pay that time to another place and still get some of what it is that I needed out of that, which I think to be fair, that's the time is money 2.0. I think you might have just cracked something because of the fact that you're literally treating it just as you would have treated the money.
Right.
You know what I mean? With the money, if you had the money, you wouldn't be paying yourself. And you think about it like that, if you had the money, you wouldn't be paying yourself. You'd be paying that consultant to get the thing done for you. And essentially, you're still doing that. You're just using the currency and paying that person. And so I think that's a really a good point, that if a lot of us started to do that more I would say if a lot of us started to do that a lot more strategically and knew that we were doing that, I think we would get to a better place because all of us wind up doing that where we treat time as money with someone by way of mentorship or by way of giving them something or by way of even bartering is a form of that. But I don't think all of us are as intentional with thinking or knowing that that's what we're doing in that moment. So I think if we have that thought and start to reframe ourselves and say, hey, I don't have money for an employee. I don't have money to bring this person on. But hey, they're secure. They got a 9-to-5 job as well. Right. Let's figure out what it is that I can offer this person to get them to kind of come on board and fulfill the mission of this business that I'm trying to build. So yeah, that was a great point, man.
Yeah, so I do that a lot. I mean, I do that even to this day. 4 or 5 years into business, because being hella scrappy, I'm just extremely frugal, and I think that I try to be very sensitive with money and knowing that I have 24 hours in a day. And I should use all of it or use the majority of it.
Yeah, as much as possible.
As much as possible,
yeah.
Right? Because we all have the same 24 hours a day. We hear that all the time, but it goes away, right? And I think that that's where a lot of people, even with the whole coffee dates or whatever it is, I think people
pick your brain.
I think a lot of people. I'm very what's the word I'm looking for? I'm very liberal when it comes to giving my time, I guess.
Yeah.
Very liberal. And I think that because there is a there is an ROI in the sense of even creating supply and demand, as I see as creating myself as a thought leader or an expert. And so as much of my time as I can, I give it away, which is interesting because then I think most people, I put my day in one bucket. And that's a bucket of of an ROI driven business style bucket, and I think a lot of people have these two separate sides, which is the
open that up. What does that mean? So just start that over. Like you put your day in a bucket.
Right. So what I really mean is I see it as one thing. Here's where I'm going with it. Most people see it as okay. One side is your professional life, one side is your personal life. Do you get where I'm going?
Yeah, but that's the. I think not most people, but probably most people in 9 to 5, because we don't have the opportunity or the availability to put our lives separately because it's all meshing together. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's maybe an entrepreneurial thing. Is kind of the idea of making sure that our day is all in one. Because I do the same thing. It's kind of like, Mom, I can't talk to you right now because business is happening. So and I have to eat off of this, so I have to call you back. It's one of those.
So do you think that's a necessary mind shift for some people who do have 9 to 5s that want to become entrepreneurs yet still live in that 9 to 5 mindset?
That's a really interesting perspective. I don't think that they should do that because I think that there's something very controlling and possessive about that one bucket thing that goes on, so much so that, I mean, we have the conversations all the time about people telling us, are we working too hard, we're too young, or like, what is it that you guys are building and all of that, and I don't know that I would have the fortitude to do that with somebody else. Nor do I think that would have been a safe choice to make, given that I knew I had to build a business. So, for instance, when I was at Google, I was there for 2 years. When I'm working at Google, if I were to come home and kind of put my entire day in this one bucket, and the time that I was at work from 8 to 3:30, am I, what I mean? I'm allowing that to also, fall into my other duties, like with going running and also, going to church and making sure I have to do all that stuff. I think that would have put me in a position of honestly complacency to kind of stay at that position longer. The fact that it was separated, and I think you almost need that separation due to the fact that when I was there, I was miserable. When I wasn't, I was happy. And I think that you need to have that separation to really get to a point of wanting to actually move out of that position. But for us, I think being able to put that in that same bucket is really important. You got to explain it. Where were you going with that?
I think I think that no, I think I agree. I don't think we see it exactly the same. I think I might not even be explaining it correctly. I think that I think if you're always, it's more so for me, not even about being in a bucket. It's more so about being on one. It's more about always being in a mindset of hungry for opportunity, if that's wherever you want to go, right? So I get the whole working, but I mean like working your 9 to 5, and then actually
introduce that. Because if I didn't get it, then I don't know if they
I don't
would, you
either.
know what I mean? So like, go like where we were, and you're like, well, yeah, here's my thought process. I treat it as a bucket, and they actually explain it so that I can catch on, and so we all can.
Or we could just go to something else. I really don't even know where I was going.
I mean, it seemed like it was probably interesting, but yeah. Let me know how you want, because it was up on you at that point. I had just got done talking, so we need to go. If we're gonna cut all that out, you got to go to something.
All right, we can go to something else.
Okay.
So some of the notes that I wrote here, they're just like stuff that doesn't have to do with this exact statement, but they were like time type of questions or money type of questions or money type of things.
Okay, go here. Because we were talking about the leverage and being able to use.
Time.
Yeah, and just talk about that, because you were saying something about a bucket or whatever, but like go into like the value. That's, you're basically explaining your value of time.
Okay, cool. All right, so okay, no, cool. All right, so another so one big thing that we hear a lot also is how much do you charge, or how do you value your time? And I think a lot of people end up taking a look at, doing a quick Google search or hearing what other quote unquote experts have done, who have spent their 10,000 hours and 10 years in the business doing, but then they try to go back and value your time, value their time appropriately, which may or may not work.
May not.com.
Right.
Ain't gonna work.
Why is that?
Man, because you can't go on the internet and find out what average CPAs are charging per hour, and then just throw your tax on there and say that this is what I'm charging now, due to the fact that that's what average CPAs are making. Like, you just started, you don't have an understanding in the way that they do. Their hours more packed than yours is. They might get more done within an hour. You know what I mean? It's a number of things like that. And so I think that you can use that as a baseline, but just, taking that and throwing that on top of there, that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, because I find myself, I'm looking at numbers all day long, and people are sending me quotes and things like that, and I'm like, dude, this is an arbitrary number, where did this come from? And what's funny is that you might have just answered it, Drew. I think people are just Googling and figuring out if I'll pay it.
Right, for sure. So a lot of people ask me how much should I charge, and it's always funny because I tell people the way I work, which is probably different or a little I think there's two ways to go about this. The way I always go about it is I charge what the market is willing to pay. At least that's where I would start out at. And then, of course, as I grow and as I build my reputation, my brand, then I can put a tax on it based off of what I know I'm capable of doing and the leverage that I have. But I think definitely at the beginning, I'm always for anything that I'm new in, or for most things. I mean, I did this when I was a DJ. I did this when I used to cut hair. I did this when I first stopped. I first stepped into the whole marketing and graphic design, all that good stuff. I would literally charge what people are willing to pay. Or at the beginning, I did a lot of free stuff too. You know what I'm saying? And of course, a lot of people say different things about that. I mean, did you ever start doing free stuff, or was that never kind of in your realm of business, or was that just totally outside of it? I definitely did, and I use that to build brand. I use that to create demand. But I think there's multiple ways of going about that.
There definitely are. I definitely did free stuff, but I only did free stuff for people who could pay for it. That was my that was the way I went about it. I only did free stuff for people that could pay for my services times 4. And what that did was that put me in a bucket of making sure that my free stuff went to the influencers. That made sure that my free stuff went to, one of the first things I did, people know like some of my experience, my first internship was at Bad Boy Worldwide Entertainment Group in New York. I was doing free stuff for everybody. I mean, I got some stuff out there. I got my name on some stuff for any of those artists going on within that time period, because my thought was, I'm going to, that's kind of like sewing for me, you know what I mean? And so I wanted to make sure I sewed up. I didn't want to sew laterally. I wanted to make sure I sewed up, because what that does is then that takes your stock up. overall. Because it's like, man, you see what he's doing for so and so, you see what he's blah blah blah. So yeah, I think I definitely did free stuff, but I made sure that the free stuff went to the people who were more qualified to help me to make sure that I got the right money out of everyone else. And really what I got out of that was I didn't feel like it was free.
Right.
I didn't feel like it was free because I knew I was going to get valuable feedback. I felt like I was paying for feedback to make sure that I was better than everybody else. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I wound up doing in my career, especially from a service-based thing. You and I talk all the time about being haunted by being in service-based industries. And when it comes to service-based industries, you have to figure out how to leverage up. You got to figure out how to get that heads up. And so for me, that was honestly figuring out how to, what is it that if Bad Boy is going to pay this, if they would have paid this, most certainly I'm not lowering my prices for you. You know what I mean? And so for me, and again, we have different styles there. That's still extremely scrappy, but I was the guy that I needed to let people know that I would let their project sink if they didn't have the money. I was that guy. Like if you know what I mean? Like it was based on the project, what that was, I was gonna let it sink. And so that looked like sometimes not having clients. That looked like sometimes being the guy that did work for free for Bad Boy and MTV and stuff like that. But then when it came to being on campus and people weren't willing to pay that price, that meant, me not eating for that period. You know what I mean? That's what that meant. But I feel like that overall, just like you said, building brand. That was me building brand. And to this day, people are like, man, let me make sure I'm correct before I step to him to make sure I have the money. And that's kind of one of my reputations. I think it sucks a little bit sometimes because it's like, man, I'm willing to give a lot more than people know. But I think that started in the first couple of years with my business because I was a stickler about, I pulled a Rihanna. Y'all needed to have my money. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I had to get it out.
Right. You said something really, really interesting that I just thought about right now. The whole learning piece, the whole education piece. I think one of the things that I think and talk about a lot is, and I want your feedback on this is, I think that I think people don't understand that learning costs money or takes time, which is exactly what we're talking about in today's episode, right? So like education costs, and I think I look at it in two ways. One is, obviously you can go to school, right? You can pay for your education. You're going to college, you're paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. That's a very obvious thing. I think you can also, or you can pay from it, or say if you don't go to school, or if you don't, buy courses or learn from a mentor or whatever, you can pay through your experience. In that case, you're paying not with money, but you're paying with your time because you're going to mess up, over and over and over and over and over again, and then you just kind of learn as you go. But you have to learn through your failure. That's the expensive way
to pay for time.
That is very expensive.
That's the expensive way to pay for time.
That is very expensive. But yes,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's very expensive. Yet most people on the forefront would rather not do that. They rather just pay money because it's an obvious transaction.
We need video in the studio so y'all can see my stank face. Absolutely not. That's not my way. I don't want to do the way of allowing that over time to kind of teach me who wants to get whooped. But you're right. The people in the forefront, those of us that are kind of moving and shaking in the business realm and who have been doing it for an extended period of time. You know what I mean? I think that's what you want to make sure you get advice about this money time thing when it comes to entrepreneurship from people who are 3, 4, 5 years in the game and who are like sustaining multiple incomes from different types of businesses. But yeah, you're right. What we do is you and I even do this. You know what I mean? We've done it with a number of things that we've done together and separately is to make sure that I want to pay for somebody else's time. That's what I want to do. I want to pay for somebody else's time. So the time that you took to learn whatever it is that you learned that I am really good at, or that you're really good at, I want to pay for that. And I want you to give me let me know what that time is worth to you. Because I just need you to implant that into my brain. What took you 4 years to learn, you can teach me in 4 weeks.
Right.
And so I would rather just kind of consume all of that information by way of paying for it. And so again, that goes back to the conversation earlier that we had of
4 years in college, right? Which I think has been a well-branded type of thing. Yet after they graduate, they're no longer...
totally not coughing in the mic on purpose.
It's almost like they're stop investing in themselves. They stop paying for their knowledge, or they stop paying for... they're very, very, very...
it's the thing to do.
Yeah.
It's the thing to do.
Yeah.
And, I've talked about that a lot, so, yeah.
Yeah, which gets me thinking on why it's so important to use your time if you don't have the money or
Yep.
if you've ran out of money or whatever, to grow brand, to learn, work up or whatever, like you said, and because that's free education. I remember when I first went to Pepsi, I legitimately went, and in my mind, I was getting paid to learn. So I felt like the script was just straight up flipped. You know, instead of going to school and paying the school, I was in this organization that was paying me to learn how to build their organization if I really, really wanted to.
Yep.
So that was the kind of the entrepreneurial in me, which I thought was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And what's the crazy thing is you usually find out, and it's for all my 9-to-5ers out there, listen up, you usually find out whether or not you have a built-in entrepreneurial bug on the inside of you when you're in those companies and when they're teaching you stuff. You are consistently, all the time, at home, at the job, whatever, you're always applying the concepts that you're learning how to do in this 9-to-5 job or this corporate structure or this corporate environment. You're sitting and daydreaming on your break about how to apply those same concepts to a business or to build something. I remember when I was at Google, I would find out little tricks and tips and things and companies that did stuff that I didn't even know that there was a service base for. And I would find out and I would get these invoices back that were like kind of deflated because of the fact that it was Google and people wanted to work with them. And now I knew that I could leverage the price from that different. And again, I'm not necessarily recommending this, and I don't think you can do that. I'm just letting you know what I did. But
no, that's good.
Yeah, I would use those prices and say like, yo, this is what this costs. And I started getting baseline. I had a list by the time I started my business of baseline prices for different things that I wasn't going above. You weren't going to be able to play me at this point because I knew what this was worth. I knew that you were the top in the business because I emailed you from the Google email address and it worked out. So it was one of those. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm gonna take this back before we kind of jump to something else. So I want to really give. I know like a lot of our listeners are kind of a beginning stage, doers and entrepreneurs and stuff like that. I remember for me. When I really, really first started, and for example, if you're in the digital marketing space or website, social media, stuff like that, I remember when I first started, I legitimately started at. I remember doing websites. You would do some stuff for free. For example, if you really wanted this opportunity, then we would jump into something like $500, and then next thing you know, it was good enough where I found out that people were doing websites for $1,000. Then we started charging $1,000. Then it became to like $2,000, then $10,000, and then it just got higher and higher. And I didn't even. The crazy thing for me is I didn't even know people got paid this amount of money to do certain things. Maybe you knew it because you were in this world.
Nope.
You didn't know that either?
Nope. Had no clue. You never know. I think that's the thing. I think you
right.
I think you never know. And I think that you get that there's a degree of being pissed off that somebody else is making.
Exactly.
There is a degree of being
100%,
somebody else is making 30 times what you made on this site, and yours has the nerve to look better.
Exactly.
It's like, bruh, come on, fam. You gonna have to run my money, man. We gotta get up here, and you start. And I think that what's needed about that, you can't just. And I don't want people to listen to this who are like beginning and not allow just because they're hearing us. This is not time that you guys can trade for money, okay? This is time that you guys can, check in and understand what we're saying. But I think you still need to go through those growing pains and kind of have that sticker shock and understand that because it is what makes you could just take what we're saying right now and just go, charge somebody, you've been charging $500 for a website. You could just take what we're saying right now and just hike the price up to $10,000. But I don't think that would work.
No.
It's not going to work because you're not increasing your skill set up at every level, like Andrew just mentioned. That 500 to 1,000 to 3,000 to 5,000 or whatever, every time you're adding a different avenue or different things to your skill set. And what's so important that people don't understand is that you are also extremely convicted at that point about why you're worth that.
Right.
Because you've seen it,
right.
You see what other people are charging, and at that point when people are like, whoa, you don't back down off of that anymore.
Right.
You no longer have that conviction about hitting quote unquote hitting people over the head because at that point you're honestly saying, bro, I'm giving you a break here.
Right.
I'm doing you a favor.
Right.
So
Right. No, I definitely that's a good point. I never used the word conviction, but that's so true because I remember legitimately once I found out what people were doing at the $2,000 or $5,000 range, and I figured that I could do the exact same thing. And maybe a little bit even cheaper. I was like, wow, like why am I not playing in this realm, or why am I not playing in this ball game? And it's just a matter of finding the clients that could fit in there. But I think that you hit a great point. It is a matter of constantly, in my opinion, the way even if you want to consistently level up, you just have to over deliver. And as you over deliver, you learn how to. You're convicted that you're worth a lot more, and then you get the opportunities to do that. But I think it is because you truly know that whatever price that you give out, that is honestly cheaper than what other people are doing, and it's just as good, if not better. And so that's something that, and like you just said, constantly raising your skill sets, constantly making your stuff look better, constantly making sure that the work matches or it's great. I think man, there's one thing that I say a lot too. I view even for me, I view talent or when I view myself or I view other people, I think everybody loves kind of like an underpriced stock, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of see people, I see myself, and I see other people and other things like stock. And if you're able to kind of notice someone who has a lot of potential or notice someone who has a lot of skill sets and bet on them right before they blow up, that's the best time to kind of jump in when it comes to connecting the dots or building that relationship, making that relationship happen, making that client interaction happen, because it's a good price. And that's the key right there. Even if you have the eye to bet on a stock before it blows up, that's huge.
It's huge. And to be very fair, I'm glad you brought up that example with the stocks because we both trade stocks and all that stuff. So with stocks, one of the things that is big with catching that is the vulnerability of a company. And the vulnerability of a company or the volatility of a company or how early the company is or like whatever people have, they kind of doubt it because it's a newcomer, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is a perceived, there's if we were to look at that stock as a person, since we're making this comparison, the thing that is needed there to keep that stock low but also that potential really high is to keep price low and potential really high, you need insecurity. And I know that's kind of like weird to say, but you need that insecurity because the reason that our prices were low and our stock was high at some point was because somewhere we were insecure about whether or not we were worth a certain thing or whatever the case may be. And I think we look at these words as bad words sometimes. That's a bad word emotionally or whatever. But with business, I think that's needed, man. Like you need that level of like, bruh, am I worth this or am I worth, constantly. Like when you send that, my thought is, this is what I tell some of my coaching clients who are actually getting into service-based businesses like the one that I built. I always tell people when you send that invoice over, if you're not nervous that they're going to write back like you're tripping, you probably are undervaluing your services somewhere. Mm-hmm. So there's that feeling of the second that you hear that sound, that email gets sent, and you're like, all right, y'all, we did it. Let's see what comes back. Let's see if they say yes to this. Let's see how this goes. Let's see if we're going to have to wind up. And I tell you what, the first time they might come back like, no. The second time they might come back and negotiate it and they'll bring it down. Third time, fourth time. But that time that you send that out and you were nervous and they write back like, let's get started, bro, that is the level up. That is the level up. That is the point where you literally lay back. You might even get in trouble with that project because you don't start it for a week because you lay back in your chair with your hands folded like, bro, I done made it, fam. Like, I'm out here. But that's the moment right there where you have an understanding like, wow, because what that does is it validates your mindset.
It's market validation.
Yeah, it's market validation. Yep. It validates the market.
And that's when your stock goes
all the way up. When your stock goes up because you're like, if this one person exists, all I got to do is, Facebook ad term, throw my lookalike audience in this joint, and you know what I mean, and figure out who are these other people that are willing to pay this amount so easily. Right. Because that's what we, especially within service-based for you and I, or any type of business when it comes to your clients paying a certain amount of money for, a specific output, there is something really important about finding your easy client. We are all looking for our easy client. We want the client that is low maintenance. We want the clients that we can put on autopilot. Right. We want the clients that we can do this stuff in our sleep. And it does not mean that we want the work to be bad, but we want the work to be amazing, but to have been so easy. Right. That's the money that we aim for, because especially people who are not just entrepreneurs, but who are entrepreneurs who are always trying to pursue some other form of passion as well. Right. Because we need this money to take and pour into these other things. But I also don't need you stalking me about it. Right. You know what I mean? And so that gets into something. We actually need to do an episode on that.
We do have an episode about that.
We need to do an episode
because
about that.
the base premises of that is, and I know for a fact, it is the people who pay the much the value that we actually want, who end up being the easiest clients.
Man.
And it's the people who, you know,
and the ones who are like, can I get it for like, it's a non-profit. I got like, you know what I mean? So those are the ones that are like, bro, I should have. It's 3 weeks into that project, and you're like, where. You find yourself in the middle of the night Googling tallest building in New York City to go ahead and take a leap to your ultimate fate.
Yeah, you know, finding your ideal client, working with clients. I mean, we can definitely have a whole episode on that separately because there's a lot that goes into that and the psychology
and
of that.
the value of money. We could do an episode all about like the value of money and the thought process that the fact that somebody was how easy is it for your client to hand over what this is, because that is going to determine what they're willing to expect. And say, I want it to be easy for you. I almost want you to set it and forget it. I want to be the crock pot. All right, I want to be the guy that you put it in there and you know it's gonna be handled, and by the time you're done, you're like, good. Like I would make a meal in this thing every chance I get. Y'all gonna have to bear with me in my analogies. I just want you.
Analogy games on 1,000.
Yeah, you got to bear with me. But yeah, I want to be the crockpot business. I don't want to be the one you got to slave over the stove, watch me, figure out what's going on, make sure it ain't burnt, all this type of stuff. Because I've slaved and I've kind of put my time in to make sure that you leave me the hell alone and make sure that I get what it is that needs to happen out of this. So yeah.
So how do you measure that? How do you? I can give some of my examples, but how do you know that your dues have been paid, or you have? I guess we just said it. We kind of just talked about market validation.
Yep.
I mean, when somebody is willing to pay you what you feel like you're really worth, or what the industry is really paying, then it gives you that. It kind of breaks the insecurity a little bit, and allows you to kind of really start building. And if you're humble enough, you continue to grind and undervalue yourself, but still consistently over-deliver. So that even if you reach a certain level of standard, you can you can be number one if you really wanted to,
and still be scrappy and have that level of insecurity to make sure that you're. And that's what we are doing, man. Like we talk about this all the time. Drew and I, before we started the podcast, it's like, people are comparing us and saying that we're doing really good and all that stuff, and we wound up having conversations with one another and figured out our commonalities weren't even just in like deliverable or what we did or even how we did it. It was why we did it, or how, you know what I mean, our thought process in it. And we're just extremely like scrappy, gonna make sure to get it done, gonna make sure to we're big on over delivery. And we even have some concepts about like knowing what it's worth and dialing it back by $5,000 because you just want to get this project off and all of that. We're still hustling out like that as if we just started our businesses. Extremely. And so I think that that's kind of one of the things that kind of unites us, and I think it makes our power play so much bigger, where people are like, yo, man, you're moving, man. Like, you're doing so much. Like, how is it that you wind up doing this? And I think that's one of the plays. And so you mentioned something that was really cool, is that it's not necessarily, what I think is that it's not necessarily like helping you not be as insecure. I think it's just that you're moving that healthy insecurity up a level. You know what I mean? So now I'm a little insecure about sending you over a quote for $30,000 for this thing that we're doing for 2 days. You know what I mean? Versus something that I would have done a couple of months prior. So we can go back now because we have to go to the money time. Okay, so go to value, because what we should have done first, and then we'll move this to the front of the episode. Okay. Go to value without, you took value. I was like, it was a good tangent. We could put it at the end of the episode, but you took value to mean like you went straight to like entrepreneurial type stuff. So go value time as in like when we were going way, way, way high level at the beginning of time equals value. Like, what is your value of it? Like, because your thing is you're willing to give your time to people. Start from there and go about why you're willing to do that versus the money. Like, why you value one over the other, or why you're willing to get da-da-da. And then that'll get us into the value conversation, and we can have that conceptual conversation and throw that actual physical stuff behind that. You see what I'm saying? Okay. You can just riff and just start talking, like go from literally like when you help people, or like scrappy with making sure that you give your time to people so that you can get things out of them. Because what I was basically saying was I was applauding you for giving that money, you know what I mean, paying them. And so I'll start and I'll give you a diving board. All right, cool. So like I said, it's really interesting that you are paying that money forward. You're literally treating time just like money. So you are probably the GOAT at this, dude, because you're taking the money You're taking, you see, you're so good at it that I'm supposed to be saying time, but I'm saying money, man. Like I'm interchanging them, but you're taking the time and actually really treating it like money and giving that time to people in the form of a currency and kind of getting something out of there. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I kind of mentioned this, and I say this all the time. When I first started the business, even when I couldn't afford bringing on people, I would give them my time, and it was a great way to barter. I can actually argue. I can legitimately argue that giving your time to somebody is even more valuable than giving money, because it becomes less of a transactional type of thing, and it becomes more of just a consistent relationship building thing. Because I really don't think people understand, and this is personally in my opinion, that time is truly worth more than money, which I think we're slowly understanding it now, but yet in practice it isn't practiced as much. And when I say that, I'm a little insane.
You said time is worth more than money to you.
For me.
Interesting, and I agree with that. But it's interesting that you say time is worth more than money, and you're willing to give your time to people in place of the money. Explain that.
Because I'm humble enough to still to want to grow significantly. I think that's why. I think because I care, because I value the ROI that I think comes 12 or 24 months versus just the ROI that comes immediately at the end of a project.
Yeah, I would say I'm the same way when it comes to valuing time over money. I definitely value time over money, but it's interesting that we agree there, but it's a little different because I value time over money.
I see where you're going.
You're not getting my time.
Yeah.
I need it. So because I value time over money, my thought process is that $1 is equated to like 1 second. And so I need all my, you know what I mean? Or I need all my, or actually that's reverse. It's like 1 penny is equated to 1 hour. You see what I'm saying? It's like, whatever that is, I need all of my time. And so I would rather spend whatever to get it off of my plate or to not have to deal with it. Now, what you're saying, I think gets into like some mentorship and stuff like that, because I wind up mentoring people and helping people along and all of that. But just like a base level, if I need to get something done, instead of spending money, giving time is never something that I would do, because of the fact that I value my time so much that specifically for me, the reason I value my time, I think that this is a good point, bringing it into why you should value your time, even if we just agree, let's say we agree across the board that definitely time is more valuable than money, and we can't make that statement emphatically. But let's just say for the sake of this conversation that time is worth, and that's our kind of our thesis statement here, is that time is worth more than money. I think you still have work to do in figuring out why your time is worth more than money, because my reasoning is a little bit different than maybe yours. My time is worth more than money because the bulk of my net worth or understanding or success has come from me being an over-the-top researcher, from me uncovering things, me meeting people, me doing things like that. And so an hour of me Googling something that I'm interested in getting into, I always say I think I'm one of the best Googlers alive in the world, man. I think I can like Google and find anything. I think an hour of me Googling something and trying to figure out how to get into a new business that may cross me over into a new income stream is far more important than sitting and having a coffee meeting just so that I can get this list of manufacturers, if we use that example again. And so for me, that's kind of, I think it's you want to figure out based on your archetype, why is time is worth more to you? And for me specifically, it's because I'm a researcher. I'm the guy that, I can use that time to go network or to go do something, buzzword. I can use that time to go do what it is that I need to do to kind of build my business. You got your thinking face on, so let me know where you're going and what you're thinking.
Yeah, no, I know, I agree, and I agree, and I disagree at the same time. I think that I think it's true. I think what was really interesting to me is we go through so many phases of life, of business, of entrepreneurship, and it changes. And I think single-handedly this is the most complex thing that people it's hard for people, because people have the content, people know the knowledge and the wisdom and the information. They just don't know when to apply it sometimes. And I think that's one of the biggest things. So, like, in certain situations, time is more valuable there. In certain situations, money is more valuable there to barter or et cetera, et cetera. And I think that, and that's why I say I agree and I disagree at the same time. Because I know, I think you're definitely
be difficult.
Yeah, I think
wouldn't be true, y'all.
I think you're right, but I think that But it comes in different stages of life too. I think because even when I look at we all know Gary Vee and we see him and a lot of things that he does. He says this all the time. Like he'll go pop in, do a whole bunch of podcasts. And he's like, honestly, this is not worth my time. But there's a different this is not worth my money at all.
Yeah, he'll say that in the interview, bro. Like
I know, yeah.
To the
he's like, honestly, you understand that there's no reason for me to really be here.
There's no other reason for me to be here, man. But, I got stuff to do, bro. But I'm here with you because it's something to me, man.
Yeah. And,
love you, bro.
And honestly, it comes down to kind of what I said. Like he plays that 2, 5, 10-year game.
Yeah, man.
He's betting on stock
that
I think is going to be worth something. Or what he believes is going to be worth something, and that time that is really for them is really the more valuable. And because they see how because they know they don't deserve it, yet they're getting it. It plays a
it's a higher value to them. That brings up something really important, which is how you value your money is going to help or how you value your money and your time is going to help other people value your money and your time that same way. Yeah. And that's really good. That's really good. And we can break there, and then I need to introduce money from the standpoint of services because we went into that, and we need to get.
Okay.
All right, cool. That's great. So I don't like that. So we got money and time. We have the understanding of how we value it. We get that, but let's move into some maybe some more practical stuff about people are trying to start their businesses and they're trying to people are always asking us questions about this, and so what are your thoughts on the money and time thing when it comes to maybe services or with your clients and getting things out of them? What are your thoughts on that there?
You're gonna have to break that down a little bit.
Yeah, cool. So the idea is that we just talked about this time and money and how they're equal to one another and all of that, but time is important when we have it for our own. It's not necessarily something that we're going to accept as a currency from a client, right? So, or not all the time, right? But just want to kind of get into the understanding of how does time and money and the fact that they're sometimes equal, the fact that one is sometimes worth more than another in certain seasons. How does that work when you're moving toward in a service-based business? How does that wind up manifesting itself in what you get from a client, or what your time is worth for a client, or maybe even how to price your services? That's a good point. I know it's a question that people ask us all the time. So, what are your thoughts on how to price your services and how that correlates to money and time?
Yeah, I think we talked about this somewhat earlier. I think it really comes down to what you said earlier, which is I think researching is really, 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 really key. I don't think people research enough.
Man.
And when you research, not just for the content, but again for the context, it really, really helps you understand, where you're truly at and what you truly deserve, which ultimately everybody feels like they deserve a lot more than what they deserve. But
what they do,
but it changes the idea game into a reality game.
Wow.
And I think that's something good. That's really, 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 really important when you're dealing with things that go on in this world and dealing with other people. But I think research is very, very key. I think there's honestly never enough research.
Yeah, ever.
You can't.
And that's one of my mantras, bro.
Which is crazy
because that's one of my things.
Yeah, which is crazy because you can't know everything either.
You can't.
So it's like you can. Oh my gosh.
But I consider myself a repository of information, man, and I'm trying to figure out. I want to know everything. And anybody listening to this that knows me, Ivy Lane Jr., you know that I want to know everything, and I try. You know what I mean? Because I one of my big things is making sure that I only have conversations about stuff that I know, and I like talking. Yeah. So we gotta learn more, man.
This kind of goes into the whole, 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
And, some people believe it, some people don't. I'm definitely a fan of it. Whether it's exactly 10,000 hours or not, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The whole point of it is it does take a lot of time. And I know I've had conversations in the past where I've actually broken down how long does it take to get to 10,000 hours? How many years?
Yeah.
And then you start to realize, okay, and I wish we had a pen and paper and we could break it down right now, but I think that you can break it down. And actually, let's just break it down. What is it? If it's 24 hours in a day, let's how many hours is there in a let's say 10 hours a day. Let's just use, if you spend 10 hours a day studying what you or researching your field of expertise, 10 hours a day over 5 days a week. What's that? 50 hours over a month. 5 times 4 is 200 hours. Times 12. 200 times 12 is.
Do the math, man.
200 times 12.
2,400.
2,400. So that's 2,400 hours, right? And so to get to 10,000, it's at least times 4 or 5. So
Well,
5.
to get to 10,000 is 10 hours a day, 5 days a week.
And then, but nobody does this, though.
200. Nobody does that.
Right.
This is why I said I was just looking at you because I wanted to see like you worked through this. But my thought is, I wouldn't break it down like that. My thought is to do whatever the overarching thing is, so that whatever you split your time in between, if you do that hierarchy thing over whatever you're splitting your time in between, if half of your time is baseball, if the other time of your, the other part of it is your job, the other part of it is this entrepreneurial thing that you want to do, figure out what you can do across all those so that simultaneously while you're doing all of these different things, you can be putting in hours in one of those things. Because who cares what you're getting good at? The idea is that you're getting good at something, that you have 10,000 hours in the bucket for something. Right. And so for me, I've had 10,000 hours in the bucket for researching for so long. Because sometimes I'm researching party venues. Another time I'm researching, you know what I mean? All of that stuff gets to get played in there. So I think that's a really good point, but I think it's about how you approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we can do a wrap up. Just like go into, all right, hold on. I was about to speak in tongues. That is fine. All right, so when we had this conversation about time and money, I think it was really good. I think we kind of broke down a few things and had a few understandings. Again, we want to push it back to you guys and figure out what you all think, our audience thinks about this. And so make sure in the comments, whatever below, I'm pointing right now, you guys can't see me. Let us know what you guys think about this because, again, obviously we see that there's like 2 or 3 divergent episodes that we need to have around this topic, but basically put, again, to me and also to Drew, time is definitely more important than money to us in this season, and it probably will be like that forever. For me specifically, I can think about it, my time is going to be more important just because money comes and goes, but I feel like my time is something that I can always get something out of. And so, even this is another thing, the value of $1 is going to fluctuate, but I'm always going to be as intelligent as I was, you know what I mean? I'm usually increasing, and so my time, being able to use that effectively is something that it's kind of like a standard rate that's not ever going to change with the value of $1. So I think it's a really good conversation, man. What you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a very, very interesting topic. It's another one of those, we know it, but what does it really mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those contextual topics that need to be broken down. I think ultimately at the end of the day, if you want to break it down even further, when it comes to time, when it comes to money, ultimately, I think that if you even want to break time a little bit further, it goes down to the value. We talked about the value of time, but also it's ultimately what value are you ultimately giving, and that could be in the form of time or money. But ultimately, there's a very popular saying: you don't get paid for your time, you get paid for your value.
Major key. Love it. Yeah, I absolutely love that, man. So, yeah, I'm in full agreement. I don't know how to end.
Boom.
Major key. All right, y'all. Till next time, we will definitely see y'all again. Again, this is the How to Mind Your Own Business podcast. I'm Ivan Lane Jr.
And I'm Drew.
Hello.
Yeah, that's a wrap. Yep.
I saw the time. I'm like, bruh.